Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We're just waiting another minute or so for the others to join and then we will begin. Okay, so again, welcome to everyone to today's webinar. So today we'll be looking at how to build out your services with Microsoft 365, presented by our cloud solution specialist, Sajid Rafiq at Bytes, and then we'll be looking at the commercial details and information, and that will be presented by Imran Malik. Okay, so before we begin, let's cover. Okay, so before we begin today's webinar, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping pointers. So during the webinar, you will be muted, but you can still submit questions at any time via the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen, or by emailing timemore@bytes.co.uk. So at any time, at any point, drop a question in there, and then one of our specialists or I will look to answer that question. There'll be a Q&A session at the end to answer any of the questions. And if we don't have a chance to answer those questions, we'll of course send you an email reply. At the end of the webinar, there'll be a chance for you to fill out a feedback form, a survey, where you can request a callback or a workshop or any further details regarding any of the information that we've covered in this webinar. So just quickly, the agenda for this afternoon's webinar is to look at Microsoft 365 versus Office 365. Saj will also present to you an overview demo of Office 365. He'll discuss the opportunities regarding the wraparound services with Microsoft 365. He'll go into detail regarding the licensing plans, partner readiness, such as resources, and then Imran will touch on the CSP commercials. Okay, over to you, Saj.
Oh, thank you very much. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, bear with me 1 second.
Brilliant. That's just
Hello, Saj, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me, Saj?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
I can hear you.
Oh, I don't know what went wrong there. Apologies. Something went wrong. Can you see my screen though?
Yes.
Fantastic. Right, I'll start then. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me on a Tuesday afternoon at 2:30. As I said, my name is Saj Rafiq. I'm not going to go on about who I am and what I do and why I should be on this call telling you what about Office 365, but I'll put my LinkedIn profile in the bottom left-hand corner there. You're more than welcome to check me out and my credentials, etc., etc. So as Danny says, today I really want to talk about Microsoft 365. What does it actually mean? And talk about some of the service that you as partners can add around your offerings to your customers. But also, look, this is going to be a generic webinar. I'm not going to lie to you. And that means that we've all got to start somewhere. I'm sure that some of you will know quite a lot about Office 365, while others will know very little. So just to make it clear, this is a very, very basic overview. Hopefully this will be a series of webinars, and as we go through the different webinars, we will be doing more specific webinars around maybe security or particular workloads. So at the end, please fill in that questionnaire and tell us what you'd like the next webinar to be, and we can be more specific and start going in more in depth around that technology. Saying that, if any of you want a one-to-one webinar, so if you want a myself or one of my cloud architect colleagues to come in to talk about a specific training to your company or to your department, we're more than happy to do that. Speak to Imran about that, but we can tailor that around. So if you sort of say, actually, Saj, you talked about this, how can we deliver that? More than happy to do that. So on that note, you've got an hour and a half with me, or until 4 o'clock. So I will be covering a lot of this over PowerPoint, which I'm not a big fan of. And then hopefully after that, we can do some demo and show you some of that product. So it's always nice to see the product in action. I guess where we need to start, and this is an old slide, a very, very old slide, but I do want to reinforce it's still valid today. Why cloud? You know, and some of your customers may not understand the functionality. Well, why do I need to go to the cloud? I know everyone's going to the cloud. The ability to around speed of adoption around technology, you know, it's within minutes and hours as opposed to days and weeks. I don't have to wait for, if I'm doing exchange, for a hardware server to come in, implement that hardware server, set that hardware server up, put the application on there, do all the necessary updates, and then roll that out. That can take weeks. With in this case, I could just phone up Imran and say, Imran, listen, I need to buy an Exchange Online 3 licenses. Bang, I'm up. And the scalability of this is I can have 3 licenses, or I could have 300,000 licenses, and I can scale back down. And in this weird times of COVID-19, where people are being furloughed and companies are not too sure where things are going, scaling up and scaling down very, very quickly is makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, and it's a necessary item. And of course, when you can scale and when you can do speed, economics comes into play. Okay, I don't need to buy a server that's huge because I may once a year need the full potential of that server, but 90% of the time it just sits there at 10 or 20% capacity. And the analogy I always use for this is take UCAS server. You know, people going to university, who goes to UCAS website? No one. Okay, apart from when you just got your college results and you want to check for clearing. Okay, their servers hit the roof and go to over 2 million hits a day over a 2-week period. The rest of the time, a couple of hundred hits a day. Okay, so do they need to buy a large server to handle that so it can sit there idly for 50 weeks of the year? No, put it into Azure and actually it makes more sense. And that's the same with Microsoft 365. Now, I'm very careful that I use the word Microsoft 365. So
Apologies, again, we appear to have a few issues with regards
they want
to
to do
the
things like
sound.
hello?
Saj,
Oh, sorry
unfortunately,
about
we can't hear you very well. Can you please start again? Sorry, with this slide.
this slide. Okay, I don't know what happened there. So
Apologies again.
with Microsoft 365, let's be absolutely clear with this terminology. A lot of people may use Office 365 or Microsoft 365 thinking it means the same thing. It does not. Okay, Microsoft 365 has 3 key pillars. Okay, one of those pillars is Office 365, another pillar is Enterprise Mobility and Security, and another pillar is Windows Enterprise. And we need to actually understand what those three pillars actually do. And together, those three pillars make Microsoft 365. So Office 365 is a component of Microsoft 365. So when a customer talks about Office 365, you need to understand what do they mean by that, what do they need, and what the limitations of Office 365 are as opposed to Microsoft 365. So those are quite crucial things. So let's talk about Office 365 in detail. So Office 365, when I talk about Office 365, and I especially to customers, and I said, could you tell me what you believe Office 365 is? And I'm hoping that a couple of you right now are thinking, oh, well, that's Office in the cloud, or Word, Excel, or that's SharePoint online, or that's Exchange online. Actually, you are right. These are the workloads that majority of people think about when they think about Office 365. However, in reality, this is Office 365. It's a whole plethora of tools and workloads bundled together, okay, and placed as different plans. So you, as a partner or as a trusted advisor to your customers, need to understand what these all mean. And actually, when a customer says, I want to buy E3, a lot of them don't realize what they're actually getting. So one of the wraparound services we do at Bytes is saying, do you want an art of the possible workshop? Well, what's that? Well, what we do is we literally go around this infographics wheel and we go explaining what those different components mean, how they interact with each other, okay, and what productivity functionality they are going to give to their consumers. And that's really, really important. So what is forms? What is flow or Power Automate, as it's now known? What is Sway? What is Streams? What is Bookings? How would I use this? Okay, Teams is the big one, Planner, and how would Planner help me? And what other tools do I have actually in place right now? And is there any overlaps for that? So if you've got a customer's got Trello, for example, Planner and Trello, very, very similar. Oh, okay, now I could see a justification of using Office 365 and maybe using Planner, and that helps me pay for that because I no longer need to pay and purchase Trello. So an art of a possible workshop is very, very good. A lot of people think they know what Office 365 is. They may think, oh, we want an E3 plan or an E1 plan. We know what we're getting. We're getting a full copy of Office. Yes, you are, but you're getting a whole much more than that. This slide is all about the different plans that you get within Office 365. Ignore the right half of the screen. So US government, 21 Bayonet, and Germany. I don't think anyone here, if you have got any of those dealings, please speak to me directly. I'm more than happy to have that conversation. But it's on the left-hand side that we're talking about business, enterprise, and education. So altogether, there's still over 15 different plans. And customers are coming to you, okay, to help them understand which is the appropriate plan for them. And Microsoft don't make it easy. They keep changing the names of these plans all the time. But if it's below 300 users, business could be the right plan for your customer. Enterprise goes from 1 user to unlimited, so whatever the number is. And education, as it says, is only for education establishments, schools, universities, etc. So really for this session, we are going to concentrate on business and enterprise. And this is another wraparound service that we do as a partner with a lot of our customers. We offer persona profiling. We understand what the customer requirements are. We understand actually as a enterprise entity, how do you silo your users? Okay, do you have office users, you have home users, you have frontline workers? What does that all mean? Okay, and what functionality does that user need to do, okay, for their everyday job and to be productive? Then we look at what technology can help them achieve their goals, and then from that we understand actually if this is what they do day to day and this is what they need to do and achieve, then an E3 or an E1 or an EF1 license would be appropriate for that customer. If I get time at the end, I'll show you a profile that we've done for a customer. Usually these are the large customers that we do. If it's a small customer, I did one this morning, 230 users. We just did it over the phone, and that's just a standard charge, where we sort of look at it when we've got customers of 6,000, 20,000 and 30,000 users. Actually, that takes a lot more time to understand their needs and requirements. I put in a commercial comparison plan, so you need to understand that, as I said, Microsoft Business is for under 300 users, and you've got Enterprise that takes you to unlimited. Now, you can mix business plans and enterprise plans in a single tenant. Okay? You can't mix education plans or the government plans or the Germany plans with any enterprise or business at all. Those have to stay absolutely separate. When you look at enterprise, you've got an F3, E1, E3, and E5. F1 is for frontline workers. That's what the F stands for. And frontline workers is actually for anyone who does not have a dedicated machine to them. Okay, so you need to make that absolutely clear that F1, if they've got a full-time dedicated machine, F1 probably won't be the right license for them. E1 has access to a majority of the tools that a customer would probably want, but it does not allow the user to have a full copy of Office to download on their machine. E3 is where you get a full copy of Office Pro Plus or Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise, as it's now called, where they can download 5 copies of Office onto their machines. Okay? And E5 has additional security and additional PBX and analytics, and we'll cover that off a bit later. So Office 365 is all about productivity. It's all about allowing my users to be productive, independent of where they are. So, and independent of what device, anytime, any device, any place. Okay? It's bringing that vision home, and that's brilliant. However, that gives a lot of people a lot of headaches, especially IT managers. And when you look at enterprise mobility and security, this is when this really comes into that. You'll have 2 types of users here. You'll have the end user, okay, and you'll have the IT department. And there's always tension between the two. The end user wanting a more fluid experience, and the IT wanting to control that security and that data. And there has to be a compromise between the two, making sure that the experience is there for everyone. So we've got that productivity, we've got that fluidness, but we've also got control and security around. And that's where enterprise mobility and security come into play. However, and apologies if you've seen this before, the conversation I always talk about is a security dilemma. And that security dilemma is quite straightforward, really. If you think about what I've just said, is you want usability, or in the bottom left-hand corner, it's usability and that fluidness of productivity. And then the security, that you can lock down that data and you can make sure that people have access to what they need and nothing more. And yet people want low costs. You know, that thing right at the beginning where I was say, actually going to the cloud is really a lot cheaper than being on-prem, and actually you'll be saving a lot of expenses. Actually, out of these 3, an IT department can only have 2 of these 3 functionalities. You can't have all 3. If you want usability, great, I'll give you usability. And if you want low cost, I'll give you low cost. But I can't give you security in that. And if you want, when something starts hitting the fan, don't come crying to me, because you know that's what you asked for. And if you want security and you want low cost, then great. We're not going to the cloud. You're going to come into the office. There's a PC at your desk. That's the only PC you can. Actually, that makes no sense with productivity and fluidness. So people want usability and security. then it's actually low cost. Well, it's actually going to start costing you. And this is where you really come in with another value add. You've got your customer that's on-prem. They want to move to Office 365. Great, that's brilliant. Loving that, Mr. Customer. And as we move the applications from one to the other, fine. But we've got to look at what the customer has on-prem, and the customer, let's take the Exchange server. They have an Exchange server, they have additional security there, they have archiving in there, and then we're moving all that infrastructure straight into a single cloud environment. Nothing wrong with that. With a single cloud environment, we've got extra storage space, we've got archiving, we've got Exchange Online protection. But we know that 91% or over 90% of attacks, malicious attacks, come via email. Well, actually on-prem, we put a layered security control over that. Well, actually, there is no layered security over that with the cloud. And in fact, we've got a single cloud. I could be a single target. It may, the hacker may not be accessing me. They may be wanting somebody else in the Office 365 environment, but hackers are just attacking Office 365. So how do I mitigate that risk? Actually, what happens when somebody deletes something by accident? Well, on-prem it's not a problem. We've got off-site archiving. We've got backup dates. We've got no backup in Office 365. And we need to be aware of that, okay? And tech failure. Actually, what happens if my on-premise infrastructure collapses? Well, we have high availability built into it. Well, hopefully they have high availability built into it. Not everyone does. And again, with Office 365, actually, Microsoft's got a lot better in this area, but it's still an issue. What happens if Office 365 goes down? Does it matter to me? If it goes down for 4 or 5 minutes, is that a big thing for me? If it is, what am I going to put into place? And those are the conversations we need to start talking to our customers about. So the risk is very low on-prem and the cost is high, where we've always talked about low cost in the cloud, the risk starts to go up a little bit. So you're helping your customers move to the cloud, and you know that they're going to be cost. And then as a salesperson, you always talk about that low cost. As a pre-salesperson, I always talk about risk. And here in the middle, we'll find the optimum point. And that optimum point is where we start taking our customers and where you should be taking your customers. And so saying, well, actually, this is our value. Okay, what we're going to do is talk about training, persona profiling, archiving, and backups. So, for example, as I alluded to before, Microsoft 365 has no backup. Yes, it does have archiving. Yes, it does have disaster recovery, but those three are different technologies. Okay, so what is archiving and backup important? Is it backup important to your customer? If so, what solution are you going to put into place? We have Druva, we have Veeam, we work with a lot of different partners, Skykick, etc., etc. You need to say, well, actually, as a value add, we're not just moving you to the Office 365 environment, we're also going to now look after your security. We'll talk about training in a moment, and we've talked about persona. We also have a product called Quantum here at Byte, and that's another value add that we've developed in-house. And what that does is look at the reporting side of the Office 365 to help with consumption and delivery of that technology.
Saj, I've got a question you might want to answer now. That's someone's asked, do you recommend having a separate third-party backup service to complement 365? I believe you answered that already, but you might want to reiterate your point.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's all down to the end users. I mean, you don't have to, okay, some customers, and it goes back to that optimal point that I talked about. It depends on how much money and how much resources you've got and how much risk you want to take into play. And the reason why I say that is, does Office 365 have retention policies? Yes. Okay. Does it have online archiving? Yes. Is that enough for you? It could be, and a lot of customers will say, yeah, that's fine. As long as we've got those two, we're happy. But I've spoken to other customers saying, absolutely not. We do need to have a backup solution. So then it's actually, well, what do you currently use? And if they use Veeam, I would be more likely to say, we'll continue with Veeam. So Veeam have an Office 365 plugin. Some customers will say, actually, we do want to back up, but we want to back up outside Microsoft. So we would use products like Druva, and even Veeam can do it onto an on-prem NAS. So you need to look at what the customer's needs and requirements are and their budget, and sort of look at appropriately. But when you're doing backup isn't just for emails. You also need to look at backing up OneDrive, backing up SharePoint, backing up Teams. So there's a lot of things. So, and why you're doing that backup and how you're going to search for content within that backup. Because under GDPR and other rules and regulations, you need to be able to search for that. If you've got access to the content, or you've got the content for 30 years or whatever, but you need to be able to search for it. Did that answer your question there, Danny? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you, Saj.
So the reason why I say is that, so Microsoft were very quick off the podium with Office 365. They came off and they said, look, there's this great tool, all about productivity, all about Office 365, and look about how we can make your users really, really be productive with each other, okay, and be productive amongst themselves. But actually, then came along enterprise mobility and security, and they thought, actually, security is important. I'm now allowing people to access data from their home. And not only am I allowing them to access it from their home, they may be in a hotel while they're on holiday and accessing company records from there. They may be on their child's machine accessing sensitive documentation. Do we actually want that to be allowed? So Microsoft have got another 4 pillars within enterprise mobility. Let's manage the identity and access. Who are you, and do you have the rights to log in to this environment? And where are you logging in from? So you could put it, say, well, actually, if I don't recognize the location or the device that you are accessing me from, then you know what? Multi-factor authentication, or in fact, you're not allowed to come in. You can only come into my environment if I know the machine, i.e. it's a company registered machine, and I know the location. And more importantly, if we look at managing endpoint devices, because the security is as strong as your weakest link. But if you've got people using their own mobile phones or their own tablets, and those tablets and phones are jailbroken, well, actually, then you're letting vulnerability into your environment. Or you've got people that still got old phones that are still on iOS 10. I know, unheard of, but some people are still using iOS 10. And if that's the case, well, that's not got updates or security patches that comply with that company policy. So again, we're not going to allow you to do that. So managing mobile devices and managing data is never more important now than ever. Because why? Think about it. I'm now, so the example I used the other day with a customer, he was sort of saying, look, we've got our data, no one's allowed to use USB keys on their laptops, so they can't take data away. And I'm thinking, USB keys, what, we're back in the 90s, okay? No one uses USB keys, okay? Everyone's taking data into Google Drive or to Dropbox or wherever. Okay. And what happens when data is placed outside your company's environment, which it often is? How are you protecting against that? And the customers will sort of, well, I'm not too sure how we can do that. But actually, enterprise mobility and Azure Information Protection can do that. Azure Information Protection can put a security layer around the document itself. So independent of where that document is, whether it's on your home PC, or whether it's on your partner's machine, or whether it's on a Google Drive, doesn't matter. As soon as it opens up, it looks at its permissions and says, do you have the right to open me? And am I still a valid document? And if the answer is yes, it'll open up. If the answer is no, then it will close down. The prime example I've used on this, or the analogy I always use on this, and some of you may have heard it, is I'm ex-Microsoft. When I left Microsoft, I had a laptop and I said, do you need to wipe this laptop clean? And they sort of said, no, we've got information protection on it. As soon as I went home, as soon as I tried to open up any of those Excel spreadsheets, nope, it wouldn't open up. Why? Because I was no longer a member of Microsoft. And that's the same thing. If you've got people that are leaving the organization in a bad environment, you want to make sure that they're not doing anything untowards the data or taking data with them. So you want to say, yeah, you know what, doesn't matter if you take the data, as soon as you leave the organization, you won't have access to it. And under EM and S, you have two functionalities, two plans, E3 and E5. Unlike Office, where you've got over 15 plans, here you've only got two, E3 and E5. And E5 allows you to do a few extra things that's more around the automation around it. So with Azure AD Premium, I can give different people different privileged access to the environment. So one of the prime examples we always sort of say is, if you're a global administrator for an environment, you own the keys to the kingdom. And if you're an administrator, an Exchange administrator, you've got high privilege. So what you don't want to do is have lots of people with high privileges. What you could do is say everyone has standard privilege, and if somebody needs to be an administrator, they come to me, explain to me why they need to be in a privileged admin rights, and they'll say, well, I've got a support ticket, I need to be an Exchange admin so I can resolve this issue. Great, how long do you think it will take you? 2 hours. Great, I can raise their privilege to that Exchange admin rights. They have the 2 hours and then bring it back down. So if their account is ever compromised, the hacker hasn't got access to a privileged account. And that's important. And that's part of the security architecture and best practices. So again, we will do I think we will do a webinar or security. I hope you asked for one around security, and when we do, we'll cover that in. Cloud App Security and Azure ATP in E5 will look at my users, look at what they're doing. It may sort of look at risk assessment. So Sad Rafiq has logged in from Oxford. Great. Two minutes later, he's logging in from Nigeria or Pakistan or India or wherever, a place long distance away. Why? How did he get there in that short space of time? That's a risk, okay, or that's an alert that will come up. It also looks at what I'm trying to do. So you can put policies into place that says, actually, if Saj decides to download 20 documents within a minute, I want to know about it. And that's important, because if I'm about to hand in my notice, what do I normally do? What do normal people do when they leave organizations? Try to get as much information as they can and squirrel that information away and you know, nest that away somewhere else so they can use it with a new company. Not here. We'll know about it when you start to upload or download huge amounts of data, because that's abnormal behavior for you. Okay, so we can put those sort of policies in place. And Azure Information Protection, the P2 over the E3, so the P1, I talked about data and putting policies around the data, and that's fine, you get that with P1, but sometimes do I trust my users to put the right policy on the right document? No, I don't. Okay, what I expect them to do is say, actually, here's a document and I've got a choice of 4 policies I can put here. Normal, secret, top secret, absolute secret. Oh, I don't know which one to put. I'll just put normal, and I'll put that as default for every document. While Azure Information Protection P2 automates that for me. It looks at the document itself. It looks at the content of that document and says, well, you've got credit card details in there and home address. So for that reason, we think this is a top secret document or sensitive document. So that's what E5 does over E3. Very high overview, but in the hour and a half, I can't go into more details, but hopefully when we do a more specific security webinar for you, we can actually show a lot of that functionality and show you conditional access and all those sort of things. So we talked about two of the pillars, Office 365. We've talked about enterprise mobility, and now the last pillar, Windows 10 Enterprise. So what's Windows 10 Enterprise? Well, everyone gets Windows Pro or Windows Home. What we're now doing is putting some additional security layers there. So as an administrator, I can manage the endpoint devices. I can protect my devices. Okay, things like with Windows Hello, which gives me the biometrics, the ability that actually people always are forgetting their passwords, or they're using stupid passwords. In fact, I don't want my users to know their password. We're going to make it 20 digits. They'll never know it. What I want them to do is use their face or use their thumbprint or whatever. We're going to do that. And once they're logged into the environment, then we'll do single sign-on with everything else. So as an end user, I don't need to know my password. Brilliant, isn't that great? With E5, you get advanced threat protection. And what the advanced threat protection does, okay, it looks at the breaches and the behavior of my machine. So what happens if, okay, so if someone has logged into my laptop, for example, and let's say I get some ransomware on it, what's going to happen when I've got ransomware is my hard drive is going to start to encrypt. Advanced Threat Protection or Advanced Threat Protection Defender will look at the machine, see that it's being encrypted, stop that encryption, alert me, and then lock that laptop down. It will also give me a report of what I was doing to trigger that encryption, what other machines was I logged to at the same time, and do I want to lock those machines down so this doesn't cascade to all the machines in my environment. So it looks at the behavior, looks at the threat that's being caused and says, right, we're locking this down, we're going to put the alert on, and this is what was happening to cause this alert. So it's an insurance policy to say if something did get through, I've still got enterprise advanced threat protection. So those are the three components: Office, Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Windows 10 Enterprise. And if you bring those together, you have Microsoft 365. And with Microsoft 365, you have Microsoft 365 Education, just for education environments, Microsoft 365 for Business, for customers of up to 300 users, and Microsoft 365 Enterprise, where we've got F1, E3, and E5. Now, to confuse matters more, because Microsoft thinks that was just too easy, it makes sense when you buy Microsoft 365 E5, you have Office E5, EMS E5, and Windows 10 E5. And same with E3, you have E3, E3, and E3. But when you get to F3, well, this now gets more complicated, because Office, you've got F3, but EMS, you don't. We've said there's only two plans, E3 and E5. So what they've done there is given you E3. And they've only given you Windows 10 Enterprise E3, but the VDA is only in the cloud. With F1, Microsoft 365 F1, yes, there is an F1. They've broken this Office 365 component down into these three workloads, so you get no emails in here, no emails at all. So this is really for end users that don't have emails, but just really need access to, say, the SharePoint site, the intranet site, and some access to collaboration spaces, but they've got all the EMS security plans around that as well. Of course, no Windows licenses at all. And with Business, they broke that down even further. I'm not going to go through that into huge details, but you get the idea there. And I'm more than happy to go into that in more detail if we get time later or at another session. These are just the different plans and goes into a bit more detail to what that is. Now, earlier I said what the difference between E5 over E3 was. Again, I did say I'd talk about this a bit later, and this is where I wanted to bring this back again. So when you E3 is probably the most popular plan that we sell here at Byte. We sell more E3 than any other licenses. But Microsoft is very keen to us to upgrade that customer from an E3 to an E5 SKU. So when we had to do that, we had to look at the E5 SKU and say, well, what does that give the customer? There's Office 365 E5, EMS E5, and Windows E5. Well, we know about Windows E5, that's straightforward, Defender, additional security. But when we look at Office, actually, there's 4 containers that break it. There's security, there's compliance, there's meetings and call-ins, and analytics. So if we look at security, you've got Office ATP, you've got Azure ATP, you've got Defender ATP. So you've got to be careful when we talk about advanced threat protection, or ATP, which version of ATP are you looking at? So I'll make it a bit confusing, and I'll explain how they all work in conjunction with each other in a moment. And you've got Azure Active Directory Plan too. You've got some compliance issues, but another reason for people to go to E5 is when they start looking at the telephony functionalities. We're seeing more and more of this. In the last year, I've seen a huge uptake with customers talking about telephony and removing their current PBX system that they have and bringing everything into Teams. And if that's the case, they will need a phone system license, okay, and a call plan on top of this. Or they can have direct routing. And again, if that's something that you guys want a more in-depth conversation around business voice and telephony and how that plugs into Teams, to say in the end of the questionnaire, that's what you would like. And we can do a whole section just in that, because that is such a big conversation to have with customers right now. Why? Because they've moved everything else into the cloud, bringing the telephony into, especially nowadays when people are working from home, it makes more sense to say, well, actually your laptop is your telephone. You don't need to use your telephone, your personal telephone, or your mobile phone. And when someone phones the work office number, it's just going to be redirected straight to your laptop. Wow, isn't that brilliant? Okay. And then we've got Power BI Pro and Analytics, which is a nice little tool. It takes data, just raw data, Excel data, for example, or SQL or whatever, and makes sense of it and brings it in an analytic view. Okay. I haven't got time to go through that now, but again, if analytics, data laking, manipulating data is a big thing of your practice, more than happy to go through that in more detail with you. Just let us know. But for me, the 2 big things is security. People want to know more about security, and meetings and call-ins. Those are the 2 that people want to talk about when they want to go to E5. So actually talk about that, how you're going to manage your input, your security. We'll talk about that in a moment. I'm not going to hark on about this. This is just saying that when you go to Office 365, you have dual rights. Yes, you can use on-premise and cloud technology with that single license. Okay. So if you look at E5 and EMS, so if I've got Office 365 E5 and I've got EMS, so if I've got Microsoft 365 E5, it covers all of that in the cloud, it covers all of that on-prem. So I have the client access licenses for on-prem as well. I guess what I'm really saying is this: listen, customers will come to you and they will talk about productivity. And yes, you can be saying, right, we can talk about anytime, anywhere, any device. We can bring that vision into play. But understand Office 365 has a lot more, and it's for you to understand actually what are you going to offer your customers to move to the cloud? What services are you going to? It's not just good enough to say, look, here's the licenses, thank you very much. Let's talk about, well, what's appropriate for you. You don't have to buy the entire plan, Mr. Customer. You can just buy one of those components if you want, but we will do an art of the possible workshop so you fully understand what you are purchasing and what the capabilities are, and we can help you with those capabilities. And when we talk about that, we don't worry, we will take care of the security side of things, or Microsoft has done that for you. And we can look at the identities, we can look at the data, we can look at the threat, and we can manage those securities. And these are the components within Microsoft 365 that will help you manage that. Now, one of the big things is individual third-party companies will always talk about how their products are very, very superior. Microsoft, if I was going to criticize Microsoft for anything, it's individually the components are okay, But when you start using Microsoft 365 and when the components start talking to each other, my God, Microsoft actually makes sense. It's actually a very excellent product. So if we, the prime example, let's say you have a user, okay, and that user browses a website like everyone else, but that website has a malware on it. Or let's say that user clicks on a link with, on a phishing email. Okay, that happens. You get an email, you're not aware of it. They clicked on a link that they shouldn't supposed to do, and what's that's caused is the user's device is now affected with malware. Okay, and what happens there is you'll get a bad actor. Okay, so the hacker's in there. It's trying to pretend to be you. It's acting as you, but it's moving sideways. It's not really after you. It's actually after somebody else. Okay, someone with a bit higher credentials. Another common entrance is brute force credentials. Okay, so or stolen credentials. And do not think this does not happen. The amount of times I've seen stolen credentials and end up on the in the wrong places is amazing. About 5 years ago, and this sticks in my mind because I just couldn't believe how idiotic some people really are. There's TalkTalk had a hack. A couple of the other big organizations had a hack. There was a hack with a website called Ashley Madison. Now, if you don't know what Ashley Madison website is, it's a dating site for people who want to have affairs. Wow, okay, there's a dating site for people who want to have affairs. What do you think these people did? They actually registered with their company email addresses. Wow. Okay. And that's how the newspapers and everyone found out these senators, these MPs, these were the people that were on these websites, because you were stupid enough to put your own emails in there. If they're that stupid, how stupid do you think they are by using the same password? Yes, you're right. They are that stupid. So those people use their company email address and then thought, oh, we'll keep it simple. I'll use the same password as I've got on my network. That got hacked, of course. And of course, all those hackers then just started going into these sensitive networks. And again, the network manager doesn't see anything because you've got this person who's trying to be a bad actor and just moving sideways. And they're not always there to be malicious. They're not there to cause trouble. Sometimes hackers just want data and sensitive data that they can sell it somewhere else. And that is what we call the attack kill chain across the network. That's what people are really trying to do. So if we looked at ATP and we sort of say, look, that's what Office ATP takes care of. That's bit A at the front. Okay. Microsoft Defender takes care of this bit. Azure AD Identity Protection takes care of that bit. Azure ATP takes care of that. And Microsoft Cloud App Security takes care of that. So there's not one component within Office 365 that takes care of everything, but they all talk to each other. Okay, so if something gets through to Defender, Defender will then go back to the Office 365 or Microsoft Graph, let Microsoft Graph know that this happened, this was the thing, and then it will let every Office 365 ATP in the world know about it. And then it goes back to the Office ATP that let me through and says, actually, you let this through, but have you let it through to anyone else? Yes, I let it through to all these 30 or 40 other accounts. Right, go back into their inbox and before they get a chance to open it, remove that email. Fantastic, I will do that. So when they start to talk to each other, it is fantastic. And that's why I'm a big fan. I mean, the caveat is also, I am a Microsoft biased person. I'm not gonna lie to people. But this is the value add that you need to add to your customers and say, well, actually, as a trusted advisor, this is what Microsoft do. However, is that good enough for you? Okay, and these are where some of the gaps will be, and we can help you with that gap. And we'll talk about more about that. But also want to sort of let you know about, actually, this is a slide that I really do love. It's, I guess the key takeaway is this is a cybersecurity reference architecture slide, and this really tells you the capabilities of how they integrate with existing security architecture and capabilities. So it's not just about the cloud. It's not just about the on-prem, but how the two worlds are mashed together and how Microsoft takes care of security both in a hybrid environment and cloud-only environment. Again, there's a URL up here that you can all go to for a copy of this. There's a video recording of this slide that explains all this in details if you've got more details about this. But as I said, if we do a security event, we can go this into more detail. So is Microsoft a security company? Well, if we look at 2018, which isn't that far away, this is where Microsoft was in the Gartner quadrant for end protection platforms. 2019, this is where they were. And actually, if we look at 2019 security magic quadrants, 5 of those magic quadrants, Microsoft was a leader. It was in the top right-hand corner. And actually, if we look at the one right at the right-hand side, right at the end there, there's Microsoft, just behind VMware. And that was in 2019. We actually look into this year's June, Microsoft has even crept up further. So Microsoft is taking security very, very seriously. They know that if they get this wrong, they've lost. They need to get this right. Okay, security is very important. So where 20 years ago, Microsoft and security were, you never said those two things in the same sentence. Actually, it's not viable. Microsoft is spending $1 billion in R&D alone. So it's taking it very, very seriously. So when you are having conversations about productivity, when you're having conversations around Office 365, also have conversations with your customers about security, what they're doing, how they're protecting the data, how they're protecting identity, how they're integrating with their existing environment, and how they're managing endpoint devices. That's all important, and Microsoft 365 can help with that. One of the things that I didn't talk about, and I should really, is I find with a lot of the partners that I've spoken to, salespeople always go in about, so this is the blue sky, and this is where you currently are, this is where you want to be, this is what your environment will look like, and this is what transition looks like. And we, as your partner, can help design, develop, and deliver. And we're all very good at doing that, but you are missing the point also. You also need your users to embrace, adopt, and use that technology. There's no point delivering the world's #1 technology that's going to revolutionize things if your users aren't going to embrace, adopt it, or even know how to use that technology. And only by doing both those things will you get the results and the outcomes you get. So it's very important. Even Microsoft has put a change management program into place with companies with new job descriptions like success managers. Bytes are putting a change management process in place. And in fact, if you look in the last couple of years, some of the new partners that are coming up are all around change management. A lot more people are doing change management than ever before, because change management is important, especially when you talk about return on investment. Return on investment isn't just about this was cheaper than this. Wow. Okay, so that was cheaper, but it took me 5 years to adopt it. No one's really utilizing it, and no one knows how to really use it properly. Well, is that good investment? But if we saw, so actually the speed of adoption was 4 months, got 100% utilization, everyone's using it, and they're very, very proficient in using this technology, then how fantastic is that? So our return on investment isn't just about this product was cheaper, but our users are being more productive than ever before. And in fact, we then reinforce it by saying, actually, we can also offer some additional training to your users. So again, a wraparound service. So again, we've got one of our customers who's asked me to help with some training videos and podcasts that are unique to that company. And we're just helping around these 2 areas. You can sort of offer all of these or part of this. And you can sort of say, well, actually, as you, Mr. Customer, you've got different types of people, different generations, different abilities, and people want to learn in different ways. Some people like documents, some like watching 10-minute videos, some like podcasts, some prefer classroom-based learning. You've got to choose what's your end users like what's the best methodology for them, and actually what do we deliver. Right, that's going to be everything around PowerPoint. You'll be glad to hear. So I'm going to just go into Office 365 and just show you some of the show you some of the new functionalities of Office 365. Is that okay? Danny, can you still hear me okay? Can you see my new screen? Danny, have you gone to
Yes,
sleep?
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Thank you. I do have a question.
Okay.
Let me just find it quickly. Okay, so someone also asked that they said that they were under the impression that there were still some versions of Office 365, i.e. E3, E5. Have they all been renamed to Microsoft 365?
No, so remember what I sort of said here. We talked about Microsoft 365. Office 365 is a component of Microsoft 365. So you can still buy Office 365. You can buy Enterprise Mobility and Security on its own, and you can buy Windows Enterprise 10 on its own. Those three pillars you can buy individually. Or if you put those three pillars together, then you have Microsoft 365. So this is why I said be careful when you talk to customers about the terminology you use, because they may say Microsoft 365, you mean Office 365. So Microsoft 365 is Office, EMS, and Windows 10. Office 365, yes, you can buy E1, F3, and E5 licenses under Office 365. And in fact, you can buy Exchange Online or SharePoint Online. So you can go down to a granular level and you can just buy individual workloads on their own. The only one I think you cannot buy is Teams, okay? But all the others you should be able to buy in OneDrive, SharePoint, all those on their own. But what Microsoft has done really cleverly is says, look, if you want 2 of those workloads or more, it's actually cheaper to buy the whole plan. And what we've done then is giving you that whole wheel. Is that okay?
Yep, perfect. And one more question. So if you are migrating from an on-premise system to 365, such as emails and documents, are the inbuilt tools good enough, or do you recommend third-party tools such as Migration Wiz?
Oh, good question. So why that question's been asked, let's look at that question. So when you go to Office 365 and you go into the back end of Office 365, you'll get a lot of go-to guided setup. This will help you set up your environment, and there's some tools in there. So it'll say, look, here's Office, here's add a domain, etc., etc. But what I'm going to do is, if you go to the SharePoint admin center, and under SharePoint, you go into Migration tab on the left-hand side. Hey, there's a migration manager, and there's other migration tools. Microsoft, quite a while back, bought a product called Mover.io. So if you're moving from one cloud to another, you can use this tool for free. If you're going from on-prem to the cloud, like from SharePoint 2010 or 2010, there is a SharePoint migration tool where you can copy from on-prem to in the cloud. You need to look at your customer and so say to your customer, actually, Mr. Customer, what are you trying to do? Oh, we're going to go from on-prem into the cloud. Great, okay. So, and this is the one of the wraparound services that you need to add. We can take all everything you've got on-prem, okay, and just move it into the cloud. So it's a bit like moving house. We can come along and just take everything in the house and just move it over, and all your rubbish will go with you. Oh, no, I don't want that. Oh, you want some cleansing done? Yeah. Oh, and while we're going into the cloud, we also want to tag things. All right, so what I mean by tagging is a searching functionality is a lot simpler for me. And also, I want to put retention policies. So any documents that's more than, I don't know, 20 years old, I don't want that to go into the cloud. We shouldn't even have that document, because our retention policy is a 10-year policy. So anything more than 10 years should be deleted anyway. So what we could do is clean and cleanse, and that's where Migration Wiz or ShareGate or AvePoint or MetaLogix, or there's lots of these products out there that will do that, BitTitan, etc., etc. So you need to look at what the customer's trying to do, what they're trying to grab. And if it's a small organization, I've had small organizations that have said to me, Saj, I only want to move to the cloud quickly. We don't have time. So what I say is use the migration tool, pick the destination, pick the source, push it in, and it will just take everything up there, and then we'll sort it out when it's there. My advice is that's not best practice. My advice is use a good migration tool like Migration Wiz and do some of that cleansing at the same time. Did that answer that question, Danny?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Brilliant. Any more? Or shall I just?
Yeah, that's all for now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, sorry, we were diverted into the admin portal. I wasn't really going to show you the admin portal. So I wanted to look at a high end. So when we look at Office 365, once we go into Office 365, yes, we've got lots of different places we can put documents. We can put it into OneDrive. We can put it into SharePoint. We can put it into Yammer. We can put it into Teams. There's lots of different ways. But to find things is very simple. If I just click on search now and I say, look, I'm looking for a document called marketing. Boom. It will now bring out pages and pages of results. But I could say, well, look, these are all the people that have got the word marketing in their job title. These are all the news items that have got the word marketing. I'm just interested in files that contain the marketing. So it's now saying these are the files, these are the folders. Actually, I only want PowerPoint that contain the word marketing. In fact, I only want PowerPoint that was created in the last month that contain the word marketing. And guess what? There's 2 there. Boom. So from that, thousands of researchers to there, it's a lot more flat structure. Why? The new generation that's coming into the workforce, they just understand Google search. They understand searching. Bang. I can just bring that in and say, I want my users to be productive. I don't want you to spend 10, 15 minutes looking for something. I just need you to find it simply. What are you looking for? Something to contain marketing. What is it? A PowerPoint. Who was it created by? And that's why we tag things. So it makes things a lot simpler to search. So that's one of the new things that I quite like. If you are using Office 365 and you go to the top left-hand corner, you go to All Apps. At the bottom, click on Explore All Your Apps. Get this. If you don't understand what one of those functionalities is, like Microsoft List, hover over it and a card will pop up, and in the top right hand corner you click on the eye. That will open up a page that explains what Microsoft Lists is all about. Anytime today, Microsoft, there we go. All about the list and all the links, what it is all about. In some cases it has training, some cases, so if we look at another one, Power Apps on that. Okay, that wasn't a good one. But you get the idea. They should all be there for you. So if you hover over it, if you just click onto the form itself, it will give you some, takes you straight to that workload. So it's a very nice place to have a look at that if you get a chance. The other thing I will say is in Teams, and this isn't just Teams, this is absolutely everything that Microsoft do, but I'm still shocked on how many people don't know this. You will have a help button. It will be in Teams the bottom left-hand corner. If you click on that, a little card will appear. If you click on training, it will show you all the training videos, all how to use Teams. So when your customer says, oh, I don't know how to do it, there's all the training videos. There's all that change management, trying to get your users up and ready. And if you want to know what's happening in Teams and what's new and what new functionalities you've got, look, something that's done in 16th of October, that was what, less than a week ago? All this was released on the 9th of October. It's on the 25th of September. So you can sort of see, actually, week by week, there are new functionalities that are constantly being put into there. Now, this functionality I quite like. A lot of us do presentations. I do presentations all the time. Am I good at presenting? Not really, no. But I do my best. And I use PowerPoint for a lot of my presentations. So I can put in here a little functionality called, so if I just actually bear with me, let's come out of that. And let's open up a PowerPoint I've already used. There's one I've already got. Click on that. And this is PowerPoint Online. You can't do it with the on-prem one. You can only do it with the online version. If I go to Animations, Alt Slideshow, click on that. There's a functionality called Rehearse with Coach. If I click on that and say Start Rehearsing, it's now listening to me and it's listening to everything I say. Now, let's say I went, hi, yeah, we're going to talk about marketing. Yeah, Q4 marketing plan. Yeah, it's really good. And we'll go to the next page and we'll talk about whatever that is, SLR camera, and it's really, really good. Okay, that was very quick. You saw that, okay? But if I exit that, it's now given me an overview of my pace and said, look, actually the pace that you were going at was quite good. Your average pace over time, look, it's in the green area. But look here, your pitch was very low. You're very monotone. Pick that up, mate. I tried to say a lot, but it didn't pick the up. It says no sensitive phrases, great job, and you avoided reading slide text. I'd be surprised if more than 10% of you on this call say to me that you've used that. Okay, that's a really nice tool. If you're doing presentations, use something like this. It's really quite good to do. So that's in PowerPoint. Another one that I quite like, if we go back here, is a Word document. Blank. Built into Microsoft now, okay, is dictation. And this dictation is in PowerPoint, it's in Word, it's even in Outlook. So all I can now do is say, well, actually, I'm going to switch that dictation on, and now I'm just going to talk, and it's just going to write what I say. How fantastic is that? Because a lot of the times I can just talk till the cows come home. So if I'm going to write a dissertation or I'm going to write a project or even a RFI, I can just say whatever I want. Now, it's not 100% correct, but it's close. So you can sort of see that. And again, that's just built in even to the on-prem version of, let's just switch that off, even the on-prem version of Word. That's brilliant. The fact that you can do that out of the box and built into Office, I'm surprised. And that's where we talk about proficiency. This is where we talk about actually, you know what, how are your users using that technology? We're so used to using Office 2013. But since 13, there's been 16, and now we're on 19. There's been 2 versions. Of course, there's some new great functionalities that's been delivered in that, and you need to know how to what that functionality is. And the thing is, even in here in Word, if you click on Help, okay, it's got what's new, and it tells you what new functionality is happening in your Word document. Okay, so you can sort of see, oh, what new functionality have they brought in to make me more productive? And this is again about that change management that I talk time and time again. And as a partner or a trusted advisor to your customer, you should be telling them they can do that. Stream. Stream is great. Stream is the online video environment for your customers. This is going to be brilliant. This is basically YouTube for your customer. Okay. And when you do this, they put all their videos in a nice, safe environment, and they can share it within their own environment safely. Okay. And they can create content, they can create channels. So you can create a new starter channel and create all the videos for how to use Office 365, or how to use Sway, or how to use Planner, and put those videos in there. So if somebody want to know Office 365, there's a channel for Office 365, there's a channel for Sway, there's a channel for whatever, and I can see that. So you may have a channel called New Starters. So as people start the company, all the relevant videos are put into one place. And again, you've got the app on your mobile phone to either so if they're getting the bus into work or the train into work or whatever, they can download it onto their phone and they can watch that while they're coming in. Be productive even outside the office. Also, if I go to create, I can do a record screen grab. So I can do my own training videos. I can show what I'm doing on the screen and it will just record that for me, put my video in and actually do a transcript of that as well. So if I look at content, look at videos, anything I put in here, so there's a nice horrible video of me there. Let's look at a nice video. Where are just discover videos. Oh, let's do all hands. When you put a video up here, guess what? It transcribes the entire video as well. So again, if you had disabilities within the organization and you have to have accessibility, you can say all videos, if they've got poor hearing, they can still read the content of that video. And if you're doing a recording from Teams on a conference call, that is then put into Stream, which means that recording can be automatically transcribed. And up here, again, if I wanted to search for something, let's say I wanted to search for a video where the word marketing was mentioned. Here's all the videos, and look, here's all the word where the word market was mentioned and what time it was mentioned. If I click into there, it takes me straight to that point in the video. So you can sort of see, actually, this is quite clever. If I've got a meeting that I missed, but I just want to see if my name was mentioned in that meeting or if a certain word was mentioned, I can search for that. Again, very, very powerful. And I'm just still surprised how many people don't know about that functionality. I quite like that. So we're not going to go through all of this on the left-hand side. There's SharePoint, there's Teams, and Teams again is the big one. This is where everyone is. The uptake of Teams has gone through the roof, like with Zoom and everything. And there is some new functionalities that is coming into Teams. So one of the new things that kind of do in Teams is you can have breakout things. So we can have a conference call. Now in a team meeting, okay, so if I did a team call, I can have up to 250 people. In a live event, so if I broadcast into a live event, I can have up to 10,000 people. And you need to talk, again, the wraparound services. What does that mean to your users? How will they restrict on bandwidth? And if they need to increase that to 20,000 people, what can you do to put that into place? So all of those functionalities are into place. One of the things that we do as a value add to our customers is we talked about all the new functionalities coming out. A lot of our account managers have quarterly business reviews with our customers. One of the things that they do is bring me in to those quarterly business review. And my job is just to say, well, since I last saw you 3 months ago, these are some of the new highlights that I think that you'd be really interested in knowing what's happened in Office 365. And that's quite good to do because the customer feels valued. They don't have time to read the updates. They don't have the time to read what's new, but you coming in every 3 months, telling them what's the latest, what's happening, adds value to being with you and makes you more sticky with that customer. And as the customers then see you as a trusted advisor, they can be more open about other projects that they're doing. And then you can talk about what Microsoft is doing in that space. Now, talking about what Microsoft is doing in that space, if you don't already know this, fasttrack.microsoft.com/roadmap. Click on that. And that should take you to the roadmap of Microsoft. That should tell you what's in development, what's rolling out, and what's actually launched. Okay, and this is absolutely fantastic if you want to keep on top of things. You can also say, well, actually, I'm only interested in Excel, 3 development things, 7 rolling out. So if you've got a customer that just wants to know about Exchange or one of the other workloads in particular, tell me which workload, and you can search just by that workload. You can even search by the release phase. So we want something that's released this month, or insider, or general availability. Okay, cloud instances is if you've got an education customer, you can say, I just want to know about the education tenant and nothing else. And new and update, what was new within the last week. So if I just look at this, 81 in development, 176 rolling out. What was new in the last week? 35 in development. Okay, interesting. So what's in development that's happened in the last week? So we'll tell you all the new stuff that's happening. Okay. Don't know if you guys were aware of that or how much of you knew about that, but that I really love about the Fast Track program. Now, the other thing is there is another Fast Track program which says if a customer has more than 150 licenses, they're entitled to Fast Track. Fast Track is a free service, and we're very proud at Bytes to say we're one of 21 partners in the UK that can offer this to customers for free of charge. And this is where they get an overview of best practices and guidance of that technology. So if they put us as Fast Track for Exchange, for example, we would do a couple of workshops with that customer to say what's the best guidance and best practices around Exchange. Get to talk to Imran about how you can work with us on Fast Track and how we can help deliver that for you guys as well. Okay, any questions, Danny?
Yes, I believe I've got a question.
Yep.
Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so if a client uses Windows RDS servers and wants to use Microsoft Teams within their RDS session, is this supported and or recommended, or is it best to use Teams outside of an RDS session?
Yeah, it's probably best outside. I mean, personally outside, because there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of. There is a new architecture on that, so whoever that is, I'm more than happy to have a one-to-one conversation with you. We also have I believe we actually have a workshop or a webinar next week or the week after on WVD and RDS. Okay, so we can you'd be better off coming to that. So you need to understand what the capabilities are within that and what's outside. There will be some bandwidth throttling happening within that, but my advice is it's a hard one. I would say, yeah, let's have a one-to-one conversation, because that's a longer architectural and more in-depth and thing that I don't want to get into on this session. So yes.
Okay, brilliant. And there's one more question. So do you offer any 365 training services, basic through to advanced, for customers or end users, covering features of 365 such as Teams, Word, SharePoint and Planner?
Absolutely, we do. So we go back to this this slide here. So what we do is for our customers, and we can do this for your customers, is I've got a customer actually right now who wants to deliver his own videos and podcasts. So we're helping that customer deliver those videos and podcasts. We can, if you wanted to, and if you don't have the skills to do that in-house, is say to your customer, actually, what do you want for your end users? Are you, we have a whole training department team here that can actually deliver the training, whether that's floor walkers, drop-in centers, whatever, or whether you want a classroom environment or a webinar like this, we can definitely offer that on a particular workload, or it could be just a generic overview. That's up to you. We also offer master classes. So what we do with a master class is, it's a bit more technical. What we do is, if we talk about how to set up Teams, or Teams, the most popular one we've got at the moment is Teams governance and compliance. So you've got Teams, now what? Well, the now is, how do you put governance and compliance around, and retention policies and sensitivity labels in Teams? So we would do a whole session on that, where we would actually get you guys to actually do some of the PowerShell, get you guys to actually do some of that hands-on experience. So by the time you finish with us, you can go back to your own environment and actually say, oh, well, actually, I've got some idea of what I'm doing and some idea of how I want to set up. We've also got quick starts where we would actually work on your environment just to get you off the ground, off that starting block. We wouldn't do all the work. We'd give you some knowledge transfer, some ideas of what you're trying to do, give you the starting with that, and then say, right, you're on your own. You should know what you're doing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Saj.
Is that all the questions?
Yes, that's all for now.
Oh, okay, I was expecting more, but fair enough. Right, I'm going to pass it back to Imran, and then if Imran finishes early, then Imran, if you could pass it back to me, and then I might talk about a workshop that I do that's been very successful around persona profiling, maybe. Is that all right?
Hi, Saj. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Oh,
you.
fantastic. Yeah, sure, not a problem at all. I don't think I'm going to take too long on this, actually. My slides aren't as much as in-depth as yours. It's just a few areas I just want to cover off and explain for partners who are listening in today. Just bear me 1 second. Let me just share my screen. So can you see my screen at the moment?
Yes, we can.
Which one are you viewing? The one I'm with the PowerPoint deck or the one I'm
The
sharing?
PowerPoint, the indirect CSP reseller incentive.
Bear me 1 second.
Yeah, you can just hit the presenter button on the bottom right-hand side.
And am I looking at this one?
We're just looking at your PowerPoint, so we can just go from there.
Yep, perfect. So, bear me 1 second, let's just get this across.
Yeah, I'll use my screen. Can you see my screen?
Oh,
Yep.
perfect. Yep, that is
Perfect.
great.
Okay.
You have to bear with Imran. He's
Okay.
Perfect. So yes, I just want to cover off just a couple of slides around the indirect CSP reseller incentives. The incentives were released on the 1st of October this year for the new ones for this FY21. So Daniel, can you change the screen there for me a second? Or do I have control? Fantastic. So as you can see there, currently there is no real change on the Azure build revenue. It's still at 4%. And what we have here also is the modern workplace and security, still at 4%. So that will be the M365 SKU Saj was talking about, Office 365, and some of the security aspects on there as well with enterprise ability and security. We have the core business applications at 4.75% with the new accelerators as well. So just bear with me a second.
Sorry,
So
Imran,
yes,
I have control, so just let me know.
that's fine. So we have the core business accelerators on there as well. So for modern workplace, that would be all the M365 and the Office 365 components. That's at 10%. So that's any new customer ad accelerator for the last 12 months. And then we also have the business applications, which will cover Dynamics 365 applications and the Power App plans as well. Microsoft have released a couple of strategic accelerators. There was one last year. They've actually split this into 2 tiers, tier 1 at 5 and tier 2 at 10%. So what that actually means for the product accelerator under tier 1, that would be around modern workplace. So it's basically any new customer ads that you have around modern workplace, and they are spending, or end customers are spending up to $250 per monthly billed revenue. You actually receive 10% of the monthly billed revenue for each month for the next 12 months as well. So it's quite interesting when you actually look at bringing on brand new customers across modern workplace. And then we also have the customer ad accelerator for business applications as well. So that would be the Dynamics apps on those. So on there, so partners can earn actually a one-time payment of 20% of the customer's annual contract value when the customer exceeds $1,000 in monthly billed revenue for the first time in 12 months. So that's actually quite a good incentive earning on that side as well, if you are looking to drive the business applications across your business for next year. So you can look to earn a lot more on that side. And we also have, there's another one on there as well, which is new customer growth, which is that's broken down into the product accelerator as well. Customers can achieve initial $1,000 in monthly billed revenue or 20% of the actual annual contract value as well. So that's a very good one on that side. And then we have a couple of the global strategic product accelerators, tier 1 and tier 2. Sorry, I just covered those ones on that side. And we also have the global PSTN incentives on that side as well. So, oh, sorry, I think I've gone back. Yeah, so that covers the audio conferencing, domestic calling plans, international calling plans, and meeting rooms. As you can see, the Azure RI consumption is still at 10% this year, which is really good. And that's 100% rebate paid. And also the subscription software, which is core at 1.25% and strategic at 6%. So they haven't changed at all this year as well. So if you can go to the next slide, Daniela. Fantastic. So one thing I just want to make clear to every partner out there that when we do speak to partners, it's amazing to see that partners that actually could qualify for the incentive program haven't actually enrolled into the incentive program within Microsoft in Partner Center. So just to be clear that you have, in order to be eligible, you have to have an active NPN, and you also have to have a minimum of a silver competency as part of this as well. And if you have those two aspects and you are a CSP reseller and you haven't enrolled into the incentive program, then I would highly recommend raising a support ticket within Partner Center to request to be enrolled. And then usually within 24 hours, you get a notification within your Partner Center to go in, put in your billing and taxing information, and then you will be enrolled into the program and start earning rebates as well. So if you do have those qualifications, or sorry, if you do apply those criteria in terms of active NPN, minimum of a silver competency, then you should be in a place to be earning reseller incentives if you are starting to sell more CSP to your customers as well. If you don't have any guidance on that, then please do reach out. We can send you over the incentive guidance form. So next slide, please, Daniela. Okay, so in terms of the co-op funds, as you can see on the earlier slide with the rebates, you can see that the co-ops was split 60-40. So beginning of this year, January the 1st, Microsoft actually implemented the co-op component to the indirect resellers CSP program. So what that means is 60% of your rebate will go back to yourselves, 40% will go up to a co-op fund, and you'll have to actually start receiving up to $4,000 threshold to actually qualify for co-op. So if you're earning less than $4,000 in the first semester or the first 6 months of the year, then you won't actually have to go into a co-op component at all. So you'll get actually the full 100% back in rebates. And next slide, please. So as you can see, the earning period here, it's actually broken down in half year. So as I mentioned before, as it started in the 1st of January this year, you can see that the earning period started from the 1st to the 30th of June. The usage period for you to start spending that co-op fund that has been accrued in the first 6 months of the year is from the actual 1st of July to the 31st of December. But what Microsoft actually do, they give you a 45-day grace. So the claiming period for this half of the year actually starts on the 15th of August to the 15th of February. So just to be clear, that any money that you earned in the first half of the year through co-op has to be spent this half of the year, and you have up until the 15th of February to actually claim that back. If you don't claim that back, you will lose it. So we just want to make sure that everyone knows how to, one, understand how the co-op motion works. Secondly, how to identify co-op within Partner Center. Please reach out to myself or to your dedicated Bytes account manager, and we can walk you through in Partner Center under the incentive section to identify the co-op funding. Funny enough, Microsoft make it always a little bit difficult and hard to find out how much money you've earned, but we can help you navigate through that as well. And then once we do have that number and that figure established, we can start putting a plan in place with yourselves in terms of what you want to spend that money on as well. So Daniel, can you go to the next slide, please? So yes, so at the moment we're talking to a number of partners around what activities they can utilize the funding for. You could have a number of marketing events or lead generation events that you wanted to roll out over the next few months, and then you could utilize the co-op funding to fund those as well, or even just updating your website or digital advertising, anything on those cases, anything to drive your Microsoft business, then we can utilize it and claim this back through co-op funding as well. Marketing development on that side around events, telemarketing, any shows. At the moment, it's probably a little bit difficult, especially with COVID at the moment. So virtual events, virtual shows, or any offers that you want to offer to your customers around that, then yeah, it's definitely one we can put into place as well. The big one, actually, partner readiness. We do find a lot of partners who are looking to still get their badges and retain their competencies as part of the business. You can actually utilize the co-op funding for that as well. As Saj mentioned earlier, we do have our learning services team. So if you were looking at readiness and training for your internal sales or technical teams to attain those qualifications, then please do reach out, and then you can leverage those, and we can actually source those training events or courses for your staff, and also look at what the total cost with the exams would be as well. So there is quite a few aspects that we can help you cover on that side as well. So following on from this, I will send you over the co-op guidebook, which covers all the eligible activities in a bit more detail, and we do have a couple of links we can share with you in terms of how to make a claim, what you require for proof of execution, where to go in Partner Center to submit a claim, and how long it takes for it to come back and be approved as well. If you do want to find out more information around co-op, then please do reach out to us, because like I said before, it's very important to understand what you have there, sat there in Partner Center, because if you don't spend it by 15th of February, sorry, if you don't claim it back by 15th of February for this year, then you'll end up losing it, unfortunately. So do we have any questions on that at all, Daniela?
Yes, thank you, Imran. So we don't have any questions that we haven't answered that have come through yet. So I'm just going to give everyone a couple of minutes. So again, please feel free to ask any question you may have.
So I'm guessing that was completely perfect. Everyone knew about how much they were going to earn and how to obtain and search for the co-op funding. I like it.
Yes. It looks like we've got someone writing a question, so just bear with me.
So while we actually wait for the question, we can probably feed back to Saj. Saj, I know we have a bit more time, a few minutes left to go over the area that you wanted to cover.
Yes, so someone's just asked if they'll be able to rewatch this webinar. Imran?
What was that? Sorry, I didn't get you. Broke up then for a second. Apologies.
No worries. Yes, so will they be able to rewatch this webinar?
Yeah, you can request a video from us for all attendees that have logged on. So completely go through it, or if you wanted to have a discussion with myself or the account manager on anything specific, then please do reach out to us through I think you have some information at the end or some contact, or tell me more at Bytes, and then we can answer that on a dedicated conversation with yourselves and your colleagues.
Brilliant. Bear with me. I think there's another question coming through. Sorry, apologies. I'm trying to unmute Saj. For some reason, I'm not letting me. Okay. Oh, it looks like that person's dropped off. Okay, so that seems to be all the questions that have come
Hi, can you hear me
through.
now?
Yes, I can.
Yay, I'm unmuted. Hurrah. If that's okay, then there's a couple of things I've still got to do. If I can have control, and I can just, if it's okay with everyone, I've just got 10 more minutes or 15 more minutes of things to say.
Yes.
Hopefully you'll find useful, guys. I know it's the end of the day and I know it's past 4 o'clock, but bear with me on this. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. Yes?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So look, what we talked about was Office 365, Microsoft 365. We talked about components. So what we're saying is the wraparound services you can talk about is training. We've got a training department here. If you guys don't have that in-house, you can rely on us to provide that training to your customer. And how that's worked out between us, back end, work that out with Imran. But to provide your own training, I'm seeing a lot more customers seeing the endpoint for their users, as well as the self-development with the IT department. Workshops. Look, a workshop is sometimes when we get customers coming in, the art of the possible workshops really worked for me. So when I get a lot of customers sort of saying, look, we're looking to go to Office 365, but we're not sure, we could do an executive workshop to the board to talk about the art of the possible, and you work through a scenario of how the company can use Office 365. So you talk about a day in the life of somebody, and you go through that, and you have 2 or 3 laptops, and you say, I'm sharing this document with somebody else who's sitting in Hawaii or wherever, and you go through that. And those can be chargeable, and we've seen a lot of people paying for those workshops. Change management, I don't need to talk about too much about it. I've already did a slide on that and said about change management. It's a big thing. Technology is only half the deployment strategy. The other half has got to be about your end users embracing that. And we could do that. Security is massive. Every big organization, I don't think there's one organization over 2,000 users that I've not spoken to that doesn't have a security manager now. Okay. More and more people are having someone just dedicated around that security. So you need to offer what unique offerings do you have around security. And when you look at security, you also need to look at compliances, retention labels, and all those sort of things. So hopefully you can all see my screen. And if I go to my admin portal here, to go through that security functionality with the security admin in here, and to go through classifications, sensitivity labels and retention labels, and to go through that with your customer to explain how do we create a retention label, what happens at the end of that retention label, what is a sensitivity label, how do we create DLP policies, and all those sort of things. You need to have that conversation. But more importantly, a lot of the IT departments, when I come to talk about security, don't even know where to start with this. Okay. And there's third-party products. We've got a product called Quantum 365, and we also use a product called Cogni that looks at data and looks at where the data is going around the world. And says, actually, we think there is some holes in your security, and it's here and here. And there's no charge for that at the moment. Okay. So if you want to have those conversations, get us involved. You know, we're here to help you. This is a partnership between you and us. We're more happy to have those conversations. And as I said, if your customers want that change management, the master workshops and quick starts, we deliver those here at Byte, and we're happy to deliver them on your behalf. Again, talk to us about pricing. And if you want to know more about individual workloads, again, we're more than happy to do that. One of the things that I think a lot of customers don't do when I speak to IT people is use forms. Forms allows me to do very quickly user satisfaction surveys. You know, customers need to do this, and you can help deliver and create some of these forms for your customers. You know, how is your IT team perceived within the organization? Oh, we don't know. Well, maybe we should do a form, see how that's perceived, get the results, take those results in, and then sort of say, let's see how we can change the perception of IT within the organization. Forms is a great way of doing that, and it's really, really simple to use. And in fact, they can do that themselves. And again, instead of using something like SurveyMonkey, this is built in for them. If I look at the admin side, if I look at reports, I look at usage. This is where I go a lot with the customers, and we go through usage with the customer. We sit down with the customer and we go through this report, active users, etc., etc. However, if you go to the bottom here, there's a add-in called Microsoft 365 Usage Analytics. And if you click on that, and yes, you have to do a bit of work at the back end, but if you do that, bear with me one moment while I sign into my Office Power BI dashboard, click into there. It gives me, and I talked about Power BI being this graphical interface of data. It just takes lots and lots of data and gives me a nice graphical interface. Well, look, this is one that Microsoft's already created, and this is free of charge. I believe that you do need a Power BI Pro license, so a great way of selling a Pro license straight away, and they get to see this. So I can see my Exchange consumption and active usage. I can see OneDrive usage, and this is a good idea for me to say, well, actually, how is Office 365 being seen in the organization? And if you're sitting down with the the company and sort of saying, well, actually, let's look at your adoption usage. It's only 14%. How do we get that up? Because the customer, this is a subscription model, don't forget. If you bought Netflix and you didn't use Netflix for 3 months, would you carry on paying for that subscription? No. Okay. If you can get out of it, you would. So same with here. If customers, Microsoft's keen for you to get the usage of this up. So if you want to look at performance of Exchange and email read and received, all the information is here at the back end for you. You just need to know how to read that. And again, if you need us to show you how to do that in the conversation that we have with the customers, more than happy to do that. But it is important that if we look at this and look at product usage, we can help our customers actually grow their consumption. By growing their consumption, you become a trusted advisor, but also we can see what the next project is. And if the consumption of this is through the roof, great. What are we not using? Are we not using OneDrive? Are we not using SharePoint? Are we not using Teams? Oh, that's 100% across the board, fantastic. So how is Teams being used with voice? Maybe that's something we should work on. There's always a project in Office 365. And I'm sort of saying all the tools are there for you to use, okay? And I'm not sure if you are aware of this usage. And if we've got a new reporting tool called productivity, how is productivity being used within your organization? What is your score? How are you looking at the health of the apps? Going through this with your customers really helps them understand their environment a lot better, and it justifies their return on investment on this. So again, I would go through that with them. I'm not going to go through some of these other admin centers, not right now, but on the health side, check Message Center. and a lot of customers still do not read this, okay? This is quite important. So all the latest announcements are happening here for them. So when they say, oh, I've never read it, I never got that message, this is where you do it. Service health, this is where you see all the health of the environment. So if something's running slow, the first thing you need to do is say, what's your service health like? And if there's an issue here, like there is with Teams at the moment, it will tell you what that issue is and what they should be experiencing. So you can always help them with really simple support issues around that. So hopefully that's been of use for you. The other place I would say is if you go to fasttrack.microsoft.com, not /roadmap, but if you just go there, if you go into the resources and you go into Resource Hub, okay, when customers are deploying the technology, let's say Teams, there's lots of templates, announcements, emails, tips and tricks that they can already have been built. They're not fantastic, I'm not going to lie to you, these aren't, wow, look at these. But the fact that Microsoft's done a lot of these items for the end user, so they can sort of just send that out to the user, helps with the deployment and the change management. And in fact, they've got sample user satisfaction surveys and measuring success guides. So all this stuff is here for them. And again, you need to be aware of this so you can let your customers know where they are. So again, it makes you sound like you know where everything is. Tons and tons of resources there, just knowing where to find those. And that's one of the big problems with customers. They just don't know where to find the resources, and spending half an hour with your customers saying, look, there's all the fast track resources there, there's fast track help over here, this is all the migration tools in this admin center, there's all the updates all here. So spending a bit of time around that and offering that as a wraparound service is fantastic. And that's me done. Thank you very much, Danny.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Saj. I'm just going to have a quick look at the questions and answer box to see if there's any other questions. Bear with me. No, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So,
right.
Brilliant.
Can you let me know who sent the question about the RDS, so I get back to that person and we're going to have a longer conversation? More than happy to do that.
Yeah, will do. All right then. Thank you so much, Saj.
Thank you.
Okay, so I believe that is it. Again, if you have any questions or queries or anything regarding the session that's just that Saj and Imran have just hosted, please feel free to drop us an email at tellmemore@bytes.co.uk. We will get back to you as soon as possible. There will be a survey, as I mentioned earlier on, a survey that will pop up at the end of this webinar. At that point, that will also give you an opportunity to request a call, request a workshop, and also request a comment or anything like that. So that will pop up right after the end of this webinar. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Saj and Imran for presenting. We hope you found it useful. And yeah, have a lovely afternoon. And we look forward to receiving your feedback. Thank you.